Hi, I'm Mackenzie, and I did my research on the cardiovascular system. So, what is the cardiovascular system? It includes the heart as well as the circulatory system. This system also consists of the blood, which is contained in 5 different sorts of blood vessels, as well as the heart, which is a muscular pump that keeps the blood circulating throughout the body. So, the circulatory system, aka cardiovascular system, is quite vital to our function in our life. Its functioning responsibilities include the delivery of oxygen, nutrients to all the cells, as well as the removal of carbon dioxide and other waste, as well as the maintenance of optimum pH and the circulation of proteins and cells of the immune system. So, there are 3 main components of the cardiovascular system. The first one is the heart. So, as I mentioned, the heart works as a pump that pushes blood to the organs, tissues, and cells of your body. The heart is a muscular organ that contains 4 different chambers, 2 atrias, and 2 ventricles. The right atrium receives oxygen-poor blood from the body's various organs and pumps it to the right ventricle. The right ventricle pumps the oxygen-poor blood out through the pulmonary arteries and into the lungs. In the lungs, the blood is diffused of carbon dioxide and is exhaled. The left atrium receives oxygen-rich blood from the lungs and pumps it to the left ventricle. The left ventricle, which is the heart's largest chamber, pumps the oxygen-rich blood through arteries back into various organs. And next we have blood vessels. There's 5 different sorts of blood vessels. The first is the arteries, which carry the blood away from the heart, the arterioles, which connect arteries to capillaries. Capillaries enable the actual exchange of water and chemicals between the blood and the tissues. Next, we have venules, which carry the blood from the capillaries to the veins. Veins carry the blood from the capillaries back toward the heart. And so I'm going to go to a little bit more detail on those. So first I said the arteries. Most arteries carry oxygenated blood. However, there are 2 exceptions, pulmonary and umbilical arteries. The blood that is carried away from the heart is not smooth, but flows and pulses and slams into the arteries. Arteries are able to expand in order to withstand pressure so that they don't burst. So when your blood pressure gets high, they're able to kind of go with the flow and expand whenever necessary. Next, the arterioles. An arteriole is a small diameter blood vessel in the microcirculation that extends and branches out from an artery and leads to the capillaries. They have a muscular layer that surrounds them and can be relaxed when influenced by hormones. When nerve fibers make contact, they are stimulated whenever periods of cold or stress take place, which makes you blush. Next, we have capillaries. Capillaries are the smallest of the body's blood vessels that make up the microcirculation. They act as a gateway for oxygen and food to all the cells. They also enable the exchange of water, oxygen, and carbon dioxide, and many other nutrients and waste substances between the blood and tissues. When stretched out, they extend several thousand miles, which I found that interesting. Next is the veins, or smaller than that, venules. Venules are the small veins that transport blood from the capillaries to the bigger vein. So veins are blood vessels that carry the blood toward the heart. Most veins return deoxygenated blood from tissues back to the heart, except for the pulmonary and the umbilical veins. They both carry oxygenated blood to the heart, but for the most part, deoxygenated blood is carried by the veins back to the heart. These vessels are much less muscular than the arteries and are located much closer to your skin. That's why you can see those. Veins have valves that close after blood passes through them so that the blood flow does not go backwards. So whenever blood comes up, they close so that no blood can trickle back down them. The tubes collapse whenever their lumens or their openings are not occupied with blood. And so those were all the blood vessels. So we have, just to recap, we have our arteries, arterioles, capillaries, venules, and veins. And then the last main component of the cardiovascular system is blood. So blood is a bodily fluid in animals that delivers necessary substances such as nutrients and oxygen to the cells and transports metabolic waste products away from those same cells. 5% of your body mass is composed of blood. Blood is made up of blood cells and plasma. Plasma is mostly made up of water, 92%, as well as dissipated proteins, glucose, mineral and salt ions, hormones, carbon dioxide, and blood cells. Blood cells fall into 3 categories: red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets. Red blood cells are packed with hemoglobin and carry oxygen. They only live for about 4 months. White blood cells, these cells defend the body. They're larger than the red blood cells. They're not restricted to the bloodstream. They often migrate to the surrounding fluid of the blood cell. Platelets, they help to clot the blood. They contain no nucleus and release proteins in the blood which initiate the clotting. So those are our main components. We have the heart, blood vessels, which contain arteries, arterioles, capillaries, venules, and veins. And then we just talked about blood. And so with all that comes diseases, unfortunately. And so there are different types of diseases that can happen in the cardiovascular system, such as heart attacks, which is clotting in the coronary arteries, and they block blood supply back into the heart. And then there is a thing called angina pectoris, which can be a symptom of a heart attack, which is chest pains, which is hardening of the arteries. There's fatty material that gets in there and hardens up those arteries, which makes it hard for the blood flow. Stroke, which is an interference of blood supply to the brain, and so whenever blockage happens, stroke can be as severe as the damage that happens when blood clotting happens. And so the ways that these can be treated are medicines and surgeries. And so talk to your doctor about genetic makeup to see if you have any heart diseases, because they run in families. Those things can happen. And so I used WebMD as well as www.heart.org, as well as our textbook, which is the Biology Today for our class. I hope that you learned a little bit about the cardiovascular system. Thanks.